in consulting, those were really intense days of my career, 16 hours a day on an average. Uh, I was, 25, 26. It was really intense. But I think one of the most important experience was I went to this, there was a sort of a training course for Asia Pacific. We went to Malaysia for 2 weeks. This was 8 hours of strict classroom training, going through courses, going through, content that would sort of, educate you in consulting. And you had people from Australia, India, Korea, China, all of those regions. And one of the smartest people that I met. And this is the first time I was amongst non-Indians in the business world. And we had presentations, etc. I think it gave me the confidence to be able to exist in a diverse setting. Mind you, I wear a turban, I'm a visible minority. I am kind of conscious because I am a visible minority even in India, in my own country, right? I went to convent school, the only guy wearing a turban. So to me, going abroad and being not just an Indian, one of the Indians, but also amongst Asians, Asia Pacific, it was a big deal.
But do you want to dive a little bit deeper into that? That even in India, a Sikh, like for the audience, especially listening, especially for the North American audience, who might not fully have the context, like what it is like to be a Sikh person in India and what that looks like.
So yeah, I mean, just an example, as a kid, I went to a convent school and it was a all boys school until grade 5. From grade 1 until grade 5, I was the only turban wearing Sikh, right? So I had nobody who looked like me. Good and bad, because obviously, my visual appearances, how do I get comfortable with that? Good, because I actually never felt that I was different, because no one actually made me feel that way, right? Like, so I think, except when we had these moral science classes where, the Catholics went to the church and the non-Catholics just chilled out, like in a classroom setting. That was the only distinction. And I remember when I was a kid in grade 3, telling my cousin said, who are Christians? I said, Christians are people who go to the church. Because that's what I know, right? That's all I know, right? But I had a lot of Christian friends, and so I think, that's the context. Like, being a visible minority, especially in Bombay, right? There'll be a lot of Sikhs in the state of Punjab, which is predominantly Sikhs.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at Bombay, Delhi too, because it's close to Punjab, but Bombay being in the west, it's very rare to see people even in the business setting, right? Like, especially turban wearing Sikhs.
Yeah, so that's true.
So I think I grew up with that, and so when people talk about diversity here, and I feel like while I come from India, it's a country, it's a secular country, and a lot of religions exist. But from a visible minority perspective, I think Sikhs are visible minority in their own country. It's very easy to identify a Sikh.
The turban wearing Sikh is still a visible minority, even in Bombay, in India.
Yeah.
For you, because you grew up in Bombay, and when you transitioned over to Toronto, I guess for you, not a lot changed, correct?
Yeah, I think because of that experience I mentioned to you in Malaysia, I got the confidence that actually it was pretty cool. Like, I actually felt great. And I think I remember one specific incident where I think a first time ever, this was my first 6 months in Accenture. I've worked with a lot of people internationally, but in the first 6 months, first time ever, I was having a conversation with a Caucasian person. Okay, I've never spoken, like I've never had an interaction. And the first conversation is about cricket. And they asked me directly about, what do you think of Sachin Tendulkar? And I was like, oh my God, I have to defend this. And then I get into a conversation. It was such a great discussion because I knew the Australian team very well. They knew the Indian team very well. And then I was like, oh, you could actually have common conversations. You could have common points of interaction. And from there on, I think I also met Indians from Australia, Indians from Singapore. It was a phenomenal experience. And one of my best friends, she's from Korea. She's still in Korea, but we keep in touch. She was at Accenture there. That gave me the confidence that, you know what, I actually can go and study anywhere in the world. And that was one of the reasons why I decided I'm not going to do an MBA in India. I'm going to go abroad.
Right.
That was the point where I made a decision after I wrote my GMAT exam.
I think a lot of people, especially who are from North America, who would be maybe listening to this podcast, when you grow up in India, you don't necessarily are sitting next to somebody from a different country. Whereas, when you grow up in Canada, and I've also gone to school in Canada, and now that I work in downtown Toronto, you are sitting next to people who are from all over the world. Whereas when you're growing up in India, most of the people in your school, especially if you're in a smaller city, of course, if you're in like Bombay, you still have people from different states of India.
Right.
But there's not a huge population of international students. And then when you get into the work culture, of course, there's a few international employees from different parts of the world, but that's still very small.
Yeah, percentage wise. Today, you might have more.
Yeah.
Because of the globalization and India becoming a very important economy.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, predominantly.